All right, cozying up to criminals, that's the focus of tonight's angle. The contrast is astounding. As Democrats refuse to vote to reopen the government or even pay essential workers, and that was nice today, and as they fight for illegal aliens and against ICE, President Trump is working overtime and deploying every resource to keep Americans safe tonight. He's targeting drug cartels that poison and kill hundreds of thousands of Americans with fentanyl and cocaine, launching 8 attacks against suspected drug boats in the past 2 months, including a deadly strike in the Eastern Pacific on Tuesday.
We have legal authority, right? We're allowed to do that. And if we do by land, we may go back to Congress. But we have, this is a national security problem. They killed 300,000 people last year. These drugs coming in. They killed 300,000 Americans last year, and that gives you legal authority.
Countless American lives will be saved because of our aggressive posture. That's thanks to President Trump. He's dispatching federal resources to cities whose elected officials just let criminals roam free.
We are getting all the gang members off the streets and the drug dealers. 58,000 kilos of cocaine. Think about a big backyard swimming pool. That would fill 1.5 swimming pools. Just the powder cocaine that has been removed, saving lives this last month. 2,300 kilos of fentanyl powder and 2.1 million fentanyl pills off the streets. We are going to supercharge this work. This is not a pilot program. This is permanent.
Meanwhile, at every turn, Democrats are fighting Trump. And they're fighting to keep criminal aliens in the United States and to keep vicious thugs on our streets. Governor Porkchop Pritzker is proud of policies like pretrial release and cashless bail, and he's unfazed if Americans suffer in the aftermath of those policies. Democrats are united. They're united in resisting Trump and being soft on crime. But Trump's team is just as united in their effort to keep protecting the American people.
The intelligence community plays a critical role in being able to support our law enforcement at the federal, state, and local level to make sure that they are armed with actionable intelligence. I'll say the last example I'll share is probably the most insidious, was providing intelligence to the Mexican law enforcement that led to the arrest of a CJNG cartel-affiliated baby trafficker called La Diabla. Her whole money-making operation was centered around luring pregnant women, performing illegal C-sections, harvesting organs, and selling newborn babies. Our folks, like everyone around this table, are working 24/7 without pay and eager to get after this because they believe in your leadership.
That's not an overstatement, by the way. This is true. They are working together, a united front. We finally have a leader who puts Americans first. After all, if we're not safe on our streets, in our homes, how can we truly be free?
This country was going to actually die without you. That's what we were facing in 2024. We've been invaded for 4 years. Our communities were sinking. Our public safety had gone to zero. Cartels were running entire communities. Sex trafficking, child trafficking, labor trafficking was out of control. Overdoses were out of control. The cartels were claiming more and more territory. City services were buckling. When you stepped forward originally in 2016, you started the movement to make America great again. And that means make America great again in every way. And that means safety. And in just 9 months, President Trump is the only American leader, not just in our lifetimes, but ever, to actually take the fight to the drug cartels, to actually seek their eradication.
Yes, and every time he fights for American safety, every single time, Democrats challenge him in court. But he's winning there, too, even in the Ninth Circuit. So how many Americans are going to have to die before Gavin Newsom decides to begin strict enforcement of those trucking regulations in his state that Bill Malugin was just reporting on? And how many daughters and sons will wake up without fathers or mothers because left-wing politicians choose to lionize illegals and demonize ICE?
What is happening to undocumented immigrants is also happening to U.S. citizens.
When I see people being stopped because of the color of their skin, and people are being demanded to prove their citizenship. I am angry because this is not the country that I want for us.
He's pounding that podium. I didn't see him pound that podium about later Arus Medina, the illegal alien from Nicaragua who raped a 54-year-old woman after he dragged her into an alley and smashed her head against the concrete. Remember, he came in under Biden into our country and was protected by pork chop sanctuary policies. But American victims, they don't count for Democrats.
The Oversight Committee will be launching on their website a master ICE tracker where we're going to be essentially tracking every single instance that we can verify that the community will be able to send us information on.
They're going to get an ICE agent killed, and they don't care. Where governors in Texas and Florida launch initiatives to get tough on crime, lock them up, in Illinois, they work to fight the crime fighters.
The commission will be charged with 3 core missions. 1, creating a public record of the abuses. 2, capturing the impact on families and communities. And 3, recommending actions to prevent further harm and to pursue justice.
Justice? What does that man know about justice? He's more worried about Trump and his own 2028 ambitions than the deaths and shootings that occur on his streets every single week. There are entire websites devoted to tracking Chicago homicide victims. Does Pritzker even know any of their names? Going forward, in every state across America, in the Virginia and the New Jersey gubernatorial races in November, and in the midterms next year, voters have to ask themselves, which party is fighting for my family and which party is fighting for the criminals? Tonight, the answer is clear, and that's the angle.
TDS has been around for a very long time.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States. President Obama is the ex-president. And Mr. Trump, for the moment, steps away.
But now there's a new strain of TDS going around, and there's no cure for it. We even asked Dr. Siegel. It's called ballroom derangement syndrome.
I think it's going down now as an official condition by the doctors. I think they get paid extra money if they handle it because it's more difficult to handle than a normal mental disease.
Just like during COVID, CNN has a live tracker. Jim Acosta is camping outside of the White House in tears.
Well, I'm back here at the scene of the crime. This is where Donald Trump is tearing down part of the east wing of the White House so he can build a massive, gaudy, gilded ballroom to the tune of $250 million. And I wanted to come down here today and just hear what people had to say about it. And in the words of one D.C. resident, unbelievable.
You know who used to love the sweet sounds of jackhammers? CNN and Barack Hussein Obama.
It sounds like they're building another wing to the White House, but we appreciate you keeping your focus.
You can't even imagine, TJ. It's going to happen for the next 2 years. All of the banging, the jackhammering, the dust, the confusion, the noise of all places to do construction is happening right here, the front lawn of the White House.
It's a 4-year renovation project. Estimated cost, $376 million.
Barry tore up the White House and spent $400 million in taxpayer money during a recession. And what did he have to show for it? New pipes and a basketball court. That's it. Translation, the contractors took Obama to the cleaners. Trump spending less, $300 million on a big, beautiful ballroom, and you're not paying for it. No one's allowed to play ball on Barry's court, but you are allowed to dance the night away during Trump's third inauguration. Kidding. But Hips isn't. He's ready to impeach.
Running the largest pay-to-play scheme in the history of the country and probably soliciting donations from people who've got business before the United States government. And all of this is going to have to be investigated. It will. All of this will have to be uncovered. It will. And these people are going to be held accountable, no matter how long it takes.
They're going to impeach the president for the third time because he built a ballroom? Suddenly, Democrats are worried about historic monuments.
Trump said, I'm going to do it. I want my ballroom. If Trump next week began demolition on the Washington Monument, to make it more of a Mar-a-Lago looking thing. Would Republicans stand up and say anything?
The people who rip down famous statues now care about preserving American history. Since when do Democrats care so much about the White House structure? They told us the White House was built on racism.
According to the White House Historical Association, enslaved human beings were likely involved in all aspects of the construction, including the carpentry, masonry, carting, rafting, plastering, glazing, and painting.
BLM was trying to burn the White House down, and Democrats were mad Trump put around a fence. The left doesn't want America to be beautiful. They don't think we deserve it. The whole purpose of the East Wing was just a ruse to cover up an underground bunker. The First Lady's secretaries have a few offices there. That's it. The bunker will still be there. Now they all have better offices. The normies understand.
Nixon had his bowling alley. JFK had his swimming pool. So, you know, he's had his touch. And it's going to be beautiful when it's done. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful.
Democrats are just mad Trump's building a big, beautiful thing during the Schumer shutdown, when the whole point of the shutdown is suffering. Not my words, theirs.
I mean, shutdowns are terrible. And of course, there will be, you know, families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility very seriously. But it is one of the few leveraged times we have.
They just said the quiet part out loud. They're making Americans suffer to bail out Obamacare for illegals. And they want to fire the only Democrat who wants to go back to work.
I'm always going to vote country over my party. And if I pay a price within my base, you know, that's something I'm willing to do. I'm not afraid to tell my truth. And if I'm going to pay a penalty, I'm not afraid of that. It's wrong to shut our government down.
Democrats won't defend you, but they will defend the guy who wants to kill children. And now they're defending a guy with a Nazi tattoo. This guy's running for Senate in Maine, named Graham Plattner. Got a skull and bones Nazi symbol tattooed on his chest when he was a Marine. The so-called nipple Nazi said he got drunk in Croatia and just woke up with it. Had it on his chest for 20 years. And he says when someone told him it symbolized the SS, he covered it up with a wolf.
Okay. I can't quite tell, but yeah. Well, actually, maybe. Yeah. It still has its like healing thing on it.
I hate anti-Semitism. I hate Nazism and Nazis. They're going to call me a communist no matter what. They called Hillary Clinton a communist. They call anyone who ever advocates for any sort of beneficial programs for working people a communist or a socialist.
And they said Hegseth was a Nazi because he had a tattoo of a cross. This guy has an actual Nazi tattoo, and they say he's just going through a phase.
I'm not overly impressed by a squad of media running around saying, what do you think about the tattoo on Graham Plattner's chest? He went into a dark period in his life. I suspect that Graham Plattner is not the only American to have gone through a dark period.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Democrats can go through a dark period and get Hitler tats, and they'll forgive you. You can run for Senate. But if an 18-year-old posts a Michelle Obama meme, he's canceled for life? Come on. Democrats called everyone they hated a Nazi. Trump, Miller, Vance, Pete, ICE, everybody. And now one of their guys has been running around tatted up like the Third Reich. And they're like, he covered it up. You know what else this so-called nipple Nazi said? Who's an oyster farmer, by the way? Guy said blacks don't tip. Said cops are bastards. And rural America is racist and stupid. Democrats defended him. They still are. They're against the ballroom, but the so-called nipple Nazi's great. It's almost like the whole Nazi thing was a hoax just to take us out. And they always go right for the neck.
I'm from the hood, okay? So when a bully comes, like, if there are no rules, you literally have to figure it out. So if you hit me in my face, I'm not going to punch you back in your face. I'm going to go across your neck. You've got to hit hard enough where they won't come back.
Miss Yolanda, where are your manners? That's not how you talk to people. I'm beginning to think they really do want us dead. This whole young generation on the left, I'm not so comfortable with. But they're climbing the ladder. Guess who's running for Senate in Texas? Jasmine Crockett. Jazzy, not to be confused with Davy, wants to be a member of the world's greatest deliberative body. Republicans are licking their chops.
This would be a dream scenario for Republicans. The possibility will make Democrats nationally nervous. I do not think that is the right nominee. And what's worse for national Democrats, I think it's very hard to stop Jasmine Crockett to winning the Democratic nomination if she does run for the Senate.
They rigged the primaries against Bernie, but old Burn Dog's getting the last laugh. His new crop of commies are starting to take over. It looks like Kami Mandami is going to be the next mayor of New York City.
Let me tell you, shouldn't have done it. I knew when I saw that. You think I thought I was gonna kill it? I knew there was a problem. But next year, 136. Okay. Let's go.
The commie's kind of funny, but government-run grocery stores, no joke. And he's just a test run for AOC.
Do you think she would be a formidable presidential candidate as someone that's done it twice?
Yeah, I think she would, and I think other people would as well. So that's her decision to make, and got a lot of other great people out there.
2028 is going to be like the Bolshevik Revolution. The communists might overthrow the Democrat royal family. That's why the cross-legged Messiah has already anointed his cross-legged disciple for the run. It Girl Newsom, flavor of the year. He's going to have to fend off a full court press of freaks. But not before the big guy burns it all down. Remember, nobody F's with a Biden. And Hunter's on a solo mission to fight for his father's legacy and settle some scores. Clooney, Kamala, Barack, Tapper too. Hunter might run in 2028. Is Fox going to host a debate between AOC, Newsom, Hunter, and Kamala? I don't think I can let Brett moderate. I'm going to have to take it. The party's not even on speaking terms. Last night at Cafe Milano in Georgetown, Obama was there, and so was Joe Biden. But they didn't sit next to each other. They didn't even talk. Biden had a seat out front at a table where he wanted to be seen. Barack was in a private room in the back with a bunch of advisors. Sources say Barry wants to invest in pro sports franchises. We hope it's not the Trailblazers. More on that later. Imagine your vice president is in the same restaurant and you don't even go say hi. And he just had cancer treatment. Barack doesn't even send a drink over to the table. Politics is a brutal business. Trump's just sitting back and watching the show.
They've even now started imitating me, of all people. They want to imitate me. And they start using foul language, but they use too much of it. You know, you can't use the F word 7 times in one sentence. It doesn't work. It might work once every 7 news conferences, but you can't do it. You can't do it 7 times in one sentence.
It's Trump's world. Just ask Time magazine. Although Gavin Newsom says Trump and MAGA are at risk of not getting into heaven. They'll have a lot to reconcile at the pearly gates. Gavin should worry about his own soul. He turned heaven into hell. Have you seen California? The it girl better be careful, because in 2028, Trump might take over the Golden State.
What Donald Trump should do is, when he leaves the office, run for governor of California. And just take over California and fix it. It would be hilarious if he did. It would be one of the funniest things of all time if an 82-year-old man steps into the office of governor of California. We're going to fix everything. You've got a problem with water. I know how to get the water. It would be hilarious.
And welcome to Hannity, and tonight a big show, a lot of news. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy will be here on the disaster Joe Biden and Pothole Pete left behind. Now, another unvetted Biden-Harris illegal immigrant driving an 18-wheeler just arrested after ramming his big rig into several cars, killing 3 Americans while allegedly intoxicated. And in case you're wondering how a person like this got his commercial driver's license, you may just have to check in with the United United Socialist Utopia Governor of California, Governor Gavin Newsom, if he's not busy tweeting and doing a podcast. Also tonight, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, he will join us. His state is holding one of the 3 major elections this year, but according to MSDNC, Americans are just so misogynistic that the Democrat Abigail Spanberger might lose to Winsome Sears. Oh, 2 women. Take a look.
This is something that a lot of Democrats are grappling with right now. As they've nominated women 2 of the last 3 elections for the presidency, lost both. There are some who say, well, we can't do that again. The stakes are too high. But of course, that does fall into the same misogynistic trap.
That make any sense? Anyway, as you can see, the legacy media mob, they're still using and addicted to identity politics, even when a Republican candidate happens to be a Jamaican-American immigrant woman. Unfortunately, on the left, attacks from Democrats have taken on an even more sinister tone. In fact, a huge part of the radical Democratic base absolutely, positively hates anyone who dares to disagree with them. This venom now has spread throughout the Democratic Party like a cancer, and it has now inspired some of their most unhinged members to commit real acts of violence. We are living through an assassination culture. Scary times out there. We all witnessed President Trump come within a millimeter of losing his life. We all witnessed the horror of Charlie Kirk's assassination, and we have long reported on the seemingly never-ending stream of attacks against ICE agents, politicians, anyone else targeted by the left, judges, etc. And yet, the vitriol from Democrats worse than ever. On fake news CNN, a Texas Democrat running for Congress threatened to go across the neck of her Republican adversaries. Very embracing. Take a look.
Donald Trump has changed things, and people trying to do what's always been done is not going to work. And I think that's why Democrats are losing black people. That's why they're losing poor people, because poor people, all they want is for us to fight. So if you hit me in my face, I'm not going to punch you back in your face. I'm going to go across your neck, because we can go back and forth fighting in each other's faces. You've got to hit hard enough where they won't come back. And so, yeah, for the same way I went to New York and spoke with Governor Kathy Hochul and said, if they're going to try to wipe us out in Texas, we need to wipe out every Republican in New York, in California, in Illinois. So no one can make me feel bad about fighting for the people that I represent.
Unbelievable. Maybe the worst part, zero pushback, no attempt to clarify from fake news CNN, the network that, gets the vapors every time Donald Trump tells a joke, can't be bothered to call out violent language at Democrats live on the air who echo the Charlie Kirk assassination. Here's another example. Look at your screen. A school teacher from Illinois, still gainfully employed, and has the support of the principal after violently mimicking the shooting of Charlie Kirk during a, quote, No Kings protest. In fact, the principal of her school is defending this in a letter to parents and pretending, oh, she's the victim. And at the University of Arizona, as we discussed last night, this investigation still underway. A pink-haired lunatic caught on camera telling a group of Turning Point USA students to watch their necks. Take a look.
Hey, Nazis, can you set up somewhere where I can avoid you easily?
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Nah, you, Nazi. Watch your neck.
Wow. But the glorification of violence doesn't end there. The raging Cajun, what happened to good old James Carville, now raging more than ever, not in a good way. Take a look.
You know what we do with collaborators,
right?
And I think as corporations, my fantasy dream is that this nightmare ends in 2029. And I think we ought to have radical thing. I think they all ought to have their heads shaven. They should be put in orange pajamas, and it should be marched down Pennsylvania Avenue, and the public should be invited to spit on them. The universities, the corporations, the law firms, all of these collaborators should be shaved, pajamaed, and spit on.
Shaved, pajamaed, and spit on. That's more openness and a loving embrace from the left. You would think after all of the shootings, all of the violence, all of the assassination and assassination attempts, Democrats would try to tone down the rhetoric. Instead, they are ramping it up big time. In Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker constantly comparing Donald Trump, ICE agents, to Nazis. Just a couple of hours ago, right here on this network, our own Brett Baer called him out. How did Pritzker respond? By comparing Trump to Pinochet. Remember the notoriously violent dictator from Chile? Take a look.
What I can tell you is that Alberto Pinochet was an authoritarian. There are lots of authoritarians that I could point to. It happens that I know best because I helped build a Holocaust museum sitting next to Holocaust survivors about what the Nazis did in those early years.
No, I understand that.
I'm not
but
talking about the
comparing
Holocaust.
to
I'm
ICE
talking about
agents.
what they were doing, taking away people's rights, arresting people, asking them for papers. Early on in an authoritarian regime, wherever it is in the world throughout history, this is what happens. It's the beginning of something very bad for our country.
All right, according to Pritzker, America is now virtually the same as the early days of Nazi Germany. Nazi, fascist, racist, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. They don't stop. Didn't work in 24, but why stop now? This is nothing more than dangerous, dehumanizing, and never-ending incitement. People that may be a little off balance are hearing these, quote, leaders every day. Repeating the same lie, the same smear, the same slander, the same besmirchment. And of course, he says, you know, this without any fear of retribution or violence because we don't live in a dictatorship and it's his base that is committing all of that violence. And you would think he may begin to focus on something positive, like bringing down the homicide rate in his extremely violent state. Remember, 5 times the homicide rate of New York City. That's saying a lot. Over 4,000 dead in Illinois since that demagogue became governor. He's a failure. He's a disgrace. And out west in California, Newsom still making his weird, cringeworthy social media posts. In a gross new post, Newsom publishing this image of knee pads of Trump supporters, also bashing those who collaborate with the Trump administration, suggesting they won't get into heaven. Okay, take a look.
Donald Trump's a broken man. He's trying to break this country. Everybody knows that. But to see people in positions of power and influence do absolutely nothing when they must know better, and I believe they do nothing, boy, they're going to have a lot to reconcile at the pearly gates.
Oh, luckily, it won't be Gavin Newsom that makes that decision. Thank goodness for Jesus. Meanwhile, on MSDNC, more vilification of President Trump, this time featuring their favorite new source of hysteria, the big, beautiful new ballroom under construction. Forget about the 16 to 20 other presidents that have done a lot of construction at the White House. That doesn't count. Take a look.
But it's also un-American what he plans to do, right? Like what's going to go up in its place is not anything that we're used to seeing here. Here's a side-by-side of Trump's rendition of a ballroom with the Winter Palace Ballroom in St. Petersburg. Russia.
Yeah, Russia. I mean, autocrats have a similar aesthetic. They like a lot of gold.
Really? They're back to peddling lies and conspiracy theories? Russia. That hoax still raging inside the halls of MSDNC? And meanwhile, behind the walls of America's most prestigious colleges, more vitriol directed at President Trump, according to a new report. A dean at Harvard University openly hoping that Donald Trump would die, called police evil, mocked the death of our friend Rush Limbaugh, described whiteness as a self-destructive ideology. A few hundred miles south at Howard University, a professor there openly encouraging white allies to become violent against their political enemies. But maybe the worst rhetoric of the night is from this conversation with fake news, CNN, one of their hosts, Abby Phillips. Take a look.
What do you do when the racists are in charge, like they are now? Like Stephen Miller is a white supremacist. I mean, he is, and he's basically running the White House. They keep Trump busy with his decorating projects. He's got building the arch now. He's got his Oval Office design. And then you have these real sociopaths that are real anti-Semites, true white supremacists like Stephen Miller. And even though he's Jewish, he's like a Nazi Jew.
Well, look, I can't speak to what Stephen Miller's motivations are.
Really? That's all CNN, an anchor there, has to say? Stephen Miller and his family have faced one threat after another. Look at this. That's in front of his house. That is his wife, Katie, cleaning off the sidewalk that these left-wing agitators targeting their home where they have young children. And yet the violent rhetoric from the left continues without a care in the world.
Thank you. And I must remind you, please do not feed Brett Baer. He'll just follow you home. Happy Thursday, everyone. So Hunter Biden called parts of Kamala Harris's new memoir, quote, personally painful. Publishers apparently forgot to tell Hunter, you're not supposed to put it up your butt. The Chicago teacher who mocked Charlie Kirk's assassination still remains employed. But school officials explain that firing her could cause her to collapse from a heart attack and crush dozens of children. Because she's morbidly obese. According to a new report, San Francisco streets are dirtier than last year, with even more feces and graffiti. But officials say there's an upside. It's creating more jobs for people who count feces.
Win-win.
A chocolate lining to every crowd. An enraged Texas Democrat candidate, Yolanda Jones, vows to fight ugly against the Trump administration, which won't be a problem thanks to their secret weapon. James Carville said Trump collaborators should be publicly shamed and spit on. And immediately Don Lemon signed up to be a Trump collaborator. A Democratic Senate candidate in Maine has come under fire for a Nazi tattoo, but now he claims he covered it up with something slightly less offensive. There's a new TikTok trend that claims you can tell the size of a guy's package by how big his smile is. On a completely unrelated note, here's my latest headshot. And finally, for the 5th year in a row, Taco Bell has the fastest drive-thru with an average wait of just 4 minutes and 17 seconds. And that's the total time it takes from ordering it to having diarrhea. All right, so it's been 6 weeks since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And have the Dems learned a thing? Hardly. Take Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, but only if you have a forklift. He's now comparing Trump's ICE raids to Nazi Germany.
We have to save this country from what Donald Trump is doing to it, because no, I do not want this country to become like other authoritarian regimes. People have criticized me for talking about the Nazi regime. People's rights started getting taken away. People got accused of being immigrants. This is before the Holocaust really took place. They create these kind of fake ideas that there's an enemy out there and it could be sitting next to you at one of these tables. And so let's round them up. Let's make sure that they are the subject of the laws that we're passing because we don't like who they are. That is what authoritarian regimes do.
Wow. You know, I used to think Pritzker was just a fat asshole. Now I realize he's a fat asshole with amnesia, clearly forgetting not just the law, but that branding people Nazis gets them killed. Yeah, enforcing immigration law is apparently how the Holocaust started. This lump of lard is as ignorant of history as he is of the food pyramid. But once again, ICE is only enforcing the law against lawbreakers. Unlike when Joe Biden was in charge, when the puppet masters removed their hands from Joe's ass long enough to sign warrants for parents, churchgoers, and a realtor with a flair for spray tans. So what does the rhetoric do? In New York City's Chinatown, ICE agents raided Canal Street Tuesday, arresting 9 illegals with rap sheets that include forgery, drug trafficking, robbery, and assault. These are bad hombres. Exactly the kind the cavalry of liberal white women seem to cherish most. Because, you know, the other guys are Nazis.
Show your face! Come on, what are you scared about? What are you scared about? They're fat Nazis! They're abducting people from their homes and their schools and their jobs, and they know what they're doing is wrong, and they don't give a because they're heartless monsters!
Well, she's got a mouth on her, and that's the only mouth she'll ever have on her. Yeah. Well, until her cats eat her dead body in her lonely apartment. So there you go. Law enforcement rounds up serious criminals, and you have thirsty broads coming to their defense. Of course, they don't live there or run a business on that street. They don't even walk their dog on it like I do every day, past the block with the prostitutes, and then back around a few laps. And yet these women defend men who sell counterfeit goods, send the cash to organized crime groups who use it to traffic women.
Right.
You know, maybe it's me, but these lonely hearts should channel their passion elsewhere. Like write love letters to death row inmates. That way the inmates will drop their appeals and we can execute them faster. Last Saturday, I was on that very street watching these thugs surround two cops who were outmanned. They did nothing. So ICE hits the gang and netted 9 repeat offenders. Yet these white ladies raged over 9 measly arrests. Hell, they had twice that number after Don Lemon tweeted, "Meet me in the Central Park men's room." But it says something about a party who keeps choosing felons over citizens. And it's all because for them, there is no downside. They don't live there. And now House Dems are launching something called Master ICE Tracker, a government-funded system to monitor the government agency that enforces the law. It's designed to help fugitives evade capture, which makes them co-conspirators. And what will they do if they see something they don't like? Arrest ICE? Well, who's going to make that arrest? You and your wife's boyfriend? But if you can crowdsource tracking against ICE, why not do that to cops? Why not, if you could decide what laws matter and what don't? Maybe we should do that, too. Crowdsource the locations of crazy white liberal women. I don't know why. And they may not be breaking any laws other than hygiene, but who's to say what a law is? So to recap, the Dems call ICE Nazis for deporting felons that choose criminals over citizens and compare the rule of law to genocide. And they're doing this while polls show Americans of both parties supporting deporting criminal illegals. But it's no stretch to go from defund the police to defend the thugs. They now believe that illegals have an exemption to the laws that citizens don't, which only emboldens illegals to go after the cops. I saw it with my own eyes. Not only can you come here illegally and commit crime, you do it knowing that the laws won't apply. Democrats aren't trying to win you back. They want you to lose hope. That way, they think, the more likely you'll vote for them.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.